Remember what I have said about locations and war. This is the perfect example of this little forested hill. Here, right on the German-French border, two major battles took place, 75 years apart, and in the same trenches too, in 1870 and 1945. In 1870, the Giffertwald was central to the Battle of Spicheren, a significant early battle of the Franco-Prussian War, and in 1945, in the same place, saw fierce fighting as American forces pressed through here to the line, slowed by German defenses, resulting in a very little known about but fierce battle.
As I'm looking out here in this beautiful landscape, I can hardly contain myself. I am surrounded by memorials. There's a pretty horse here in the field. There's an American tank here, which should tell you that, well, we came through here at one point. But that's not all. This place is absolutely amazing because, oh yeah, there's also this bunker here. Pretty much all of my favorite wars. Well, if you want to put it that way. The Franco-Prussian War, 1870, was fought here. World War II, 1945, was fought here. This place, this little hill, pretty much intersects all of the interesting military history. And no one's here to let me in. Anyway, we'll forgive them for that. In 1940, Hitler was here on this very spot as well. Anyway, there's not a whole lot to say to this. You had an anti-tank gun was housed in here, with one room for munition, and one room for the crew, and then of course, a machine gun covered entrance. So there's not a whole lot more to this. Of course, the Allies tried to blow it up when they took it here in 1945, and there are some signs of it, but it's still here, in one piece, locked, of course, because that's the way life goes from here. It's not anything we haven't seen before, except this heavy armored plate and this heavy armored door, which I suspect has been put in by the restoration effort. And this, we all know what this is. And this is the fighting front of the bunker, where the anti-tank cannon would sit in here. That's a very large embrasure. Just thinking about the pack of the day would be pack 36. This looks like it would house something bigger. That last plate is put on by the museum here, but the Panzerplatte only looks like 5-6 centimeters. No forward firing machine gun, close defensive, anything, only the pack. Which is actually a little strange. So it's a little strange. There's no dome, no nothing here. Just one armament and then a protective entrance. It's not a standard design.
This tank was donated by the 70th Infantry Division to the association here in 1997. It has not been possible to contact any of them since there's no contact number to be found. But I have showed you a lot of bunkers inside, so we can focus on the battlefield, which is bookended by these two large bivouacs. In 1870, the French, led by Napoleon III, declared war on German Prussia, on a whim encouraged by his wife. He even had his young son fire the first cannon shot in the battle. A somewhat odd thing to do before his own military was even close to being mobilized, while, however, Prussia, the most military state ever, had fully anticipated this and was ready to jump off against France about 4 seconds after the first French shell had exploded. And the Prussians did what they do best and charged into France to defeat the French faster than in 1940. However, it was still a real battle and a real war. Right here on August 6, 1870, French forces under General Charles Fossard against the Prussian troops led by General Karl Friedrich von Steinmetz. The French early on occupied the heights here above Spicheren, including the Rote Berg and the adjacent forest here, Grifferwald, where I am today, especially to defend against the Prussian advance towards Saarbrücke. The fighting began around 1 p.m. when Prussian forces, led by cavalry, attacked the Roteberg uphill, initially facing fierce resistance from the French troops. Well entrenched here in forest and on the slopes, the French also had their rapid-fire mitrailleuse take a heavy toll on the Prussian cavalry, who kept rallying but was cut down in droves time and again. But by 3 p.m., superior Prussian artillery, finally in place, opened up, using their breech-loading Krupp cannons, and finally forced the French to retreat from their forward positions. By 4 o'clock, reinforcements from the Prussian 5th and 16th Infantry Division arrived, and with the remaining cavalry, they charged once again, finally capturing parts of the forest in intense close-quarter combat. The French rallied and counterattacked at 5 p.m., but were halted by the Prussian artillery and the constant infantry charges. As night fell, the fighting continued here in the forest, with hand-to-hand fighting persisting way until midnight. General Fossard, lacking any reinforcements, finally ordered a retreat at 9 p.m. The Prussians, exhausted from suffering heavy casualties, they halted here and did not pursue, entering Forbach the next morning. But the Prussians lost almost 4,000 men here, and the French yet only half that number of killed and wounded. 1,092 of all of the soldiers who fell here still rest here, side by side, enemy and friend, in the cemetery, although most of them are unidentified, as it often was.
Just imagine the armies that have walked and fought in this wood, on this hill in 1870, Franco-Prussian Wars, battles fought here, 1940, 1945. This is a historic place. And yet today, it is just so quiet and beautiful and serene. They died a hero's death for king and fatherland on August 6, 1870, in this place. I wonder how the German soldiers of the Second World War felt about fighting right here, making a stand next to this monument. I always said battlefields are many times the same because strategic important location remains dependent on the layout of the nature. Something else sitting down there. And I'm thinking munition shelter. Don't see any firing ports. Wow. And you see the trenches running down here still. Take a look at the trenches here. Large zigzag trenches coming down to this next bunker. And there's a lot more in these woods. This was an important location strategically. See how the trench is running down and through this bunker. Could be a crew shelter, could be a munition storage. Continue up in the forest here. Let's go have a look, see what's inside. It's open. But just, wow, you just look at the trenches. They're just crisscrossing this. Let's go inside, see what's in here. I'm thinking traditional munition shelter, possibly. Crew bunker. Steel roof, thin plate there. Steel door, full of water. Yeah, this could be a small command post. There was beds here. Yeah, there's beds here on the walls. And there's bed attachments on the walls. Probably he would also have been, looks like a bunker oven up there. Just a place where people could sneak in and get a little warm. Maybe sleep, especially in the winter. It would be really cold out here. Just look at how deep that trench is. Runs down the hill here in front of this little bunker. So if you were a ballsy commander and a little crazy, you would stand up here on top of the bunker, watch the approach of the enemy down there, and watch your troops scurry around in the trenches. This almost resembles World War I, doesn't it? Small little pillboxes and tons of trenches. And you certainly also see the impacts here in front of the small pillbox up here. There are lots of battle scars. There's no firing embrasures here. This is not a fighting position, and it's covered up with the mound of dirt here in front. I'm certain this is a munitions storage, but let's see if I'm right. I will know when we get inside. See what we'll see. I see mud. Not the first time I've gone down on my ass in France, is it? It's always muddy here. Alright. So we got. Oh, this is nice and dry. This is exactly identical to the other one. Looks like there were mounts on the wall. There's plenty of wood on the wall for what could have been bedding. Just a small little shelter again. This is almost so small, one would have thought it could have been put up at the time the Americans arrived, or before. It's so small in here and simple to have been built. This would take a couple of weeks. It could have been built rudimentarily, quickly, crude, in 1944, winter of 44 even. I guess here's wood as well for attachments. The wood is almost baked in. Every time there's a wall, there'll be wood in all of these. Even if it wasn't used, it was still put in, so it could be, in case for some reason the function of the bunker would be changed. But this too is the west wall. I mean, that sign doesn't say it all about this place. I don't know what does. And also surrounding us, we have to remember that there's a large line of Maginot Line forts to one side of me, the west wall to the other. I am very close to the German-French border, as it was in 1939, 1940, as it is today. And even the Franco-Prussian War started with a short stab towards Strasbourg by the French army, repelled by a very violent counter-thrust by the combined German and Prussian armies that didn't stop until they had taken Paris. I guess a little bit like in 1940, German armies did not stop until they had taken Paris. See, I see a little cement sitting in here. There's no map over what is here. Although the layout of the trenches would be really exciting to follow to their battle stations, the machine gun nests, But this is really exciting. This is very different. Speaking of different, this too is different. What is this? What is that? On one hand, it looked like one of the shelters we've seen before, with a small little room in it. Although this... No, you can't have built an emergency exit of a little... I suppose you could. I also suspect they did. And these were not blown up because this was France. So, yeah, this is like the one we've seen. So what's with the emergency exit? I mean, can that even be connected? Alright, that's confusing. Let's take a look. I mean, it doesn't connect to the inside of the bunker. There's no hole that I can see. Almost look like sewage pipes on the bottom. And again, look at the trenches. Just look at this system. Trenches zigzagging away from here, all through the woods, running down there towards the front. I don't really see that many over here, but here certainly. This is that little pipe. Continues. It's not actually connected to the bunker. It's sort of splitting away from it. And we'll get inside here. I'll bet we'll see exactly what we've seen before. And we are. Yeah. Exactly the same little rudimentary bunker. German built. Wood. Attachment for bed. There. Little command center, command post maybe. Alright. A nest in there. I gotta get out of here. There's actually a bird's nest. And these are little baby birds. I'm sorry, mommy bird. I'm sorry. There's a little bird's nest right there. Being very low to the ground, thinking predators. But sheltered. Oh, little babies. Alright, I'll go find some more bunkers. Leave the birds alone. And again, lots of trenches. Deep, still well preserved. Running up, way up, crossing the road up there. I would imagine there's a lot more of these smaller bunkers. Maybe another pack shelter at the end. But this does give me the feel that this was, well, either constructed in a place where the Germans thought it unlikely there'd be an attack because, well, I'm not seeing anything big and heavy or anything that would support big and heavy, or they were thrown together quickly, rudimentary, last minute in 1944, 45. I wonder if the Prussians in 1870 or the French here dug trenches and shelters as well. They were dealing with cavalry, cannon, mitrailleuse, breech loading. Napoleon III was not as smart as Napoleon I. to not conduct the war in as skillful a manner. But he tried.
In 1945, on a cold, snowy February on the 21st, the U.S. 70th Infantry Division began their assault on the forested hill here, fighting their way to the line. But here the Germans had incorporated the Giffertwald into the west wall. The hill facing the west was full of trenches with small pillboxes, interlocking and flanked by 2 heavy Panzerwerks, still here today, utilizing the terrain fully to their advantage. The Germans fought stubbornly here, and the trenches had to be cleared out one by close-quarter combat. And a very strange thing about this battle is that very little is known of it. Even the casualties here are not exactly known. We, in fact, know far more about the Battle of 1870 for some reason. So with that, we have to walk the battlefields here and see where all of these men fought and died.
There's the next. Seems to me the line is straightening out here away from the road. And it certainly has also occurred to me that this is a place where there are dead soldiers from 3 wars on the ground. Hence I am surrounded by memorials, as I should be, from 3 different armies. Well, this looks like what we've seen before. Which I am a little surprised that there's no strong points for every so many of these. There should be a strong point. Because these aren't even defensive positions. These are just small crew shelters, munition shelters. They would have no practical part in fighting. So there should be more. There really should. Let's take a look. We're here after all. See if I find any more live birds. Another one, just the same, flooded. You get the point. Now, maybe I should try something else. Honestly, I really want to follow the trench, but now if there was a strong point position, wouldn't it be behind me? This being the forward trenches? Try to stagger my way through the trench here. Oh, there's a deer over there. Alright, I see the trenches being full. We're going to crawl up here. Wow. I don't know. Well, I don't know what direction to go, honestly. I kind of want to follow the trench. That's going to lead to a pit at best. But if I went the other way, that might be where larger fortifications might be. These are actually quite wide trenches for, these looks like wider, bigger than a running trench, or like a fighting trench, not just a little connection point or a connecting trench for dispatch and so on. It seems like it would be almost overkill for that. I mean, look how deep this is. Really. These just keep going, zigzagging their way towards the front. Now I'm looking at every mound, everything. I would love to know where here the 1870 battle had taken place. Now I knew if I looked long enough, I'd find something a little bigger. This looks like another position for an AT gun. Let's go have a look. Yeah, again, here you see the trenches leading up to it, front of it, to the little bunker up there. So it looks like the fortified line here through the top of the little hill that is interspersed by small personnel bunkers and bookended by two larger AT shelters, which this certainly also looked like is one of, with the heavy Panzerplatte and a couple of impacts to the face here. This was the fighting front. Although if I'm not turned around completely, which I might be, this is facing south, direction slightly different than the other one. Early design has a different design. Even for the east wall, don't see, well, the Panzerplatte we see, but this wide of an opening without stages. All right, now we cross our fingers that it's open. However, it's locked. But that's all right. I have a pretty good idea what's inside. And this is part of one of those museums that's only open once a year on the day where you're somewhere else.
In many ways, this position reminds me of a World War I late trench system, full of trenches leading from bunker to bunker, small bunkers for personnel or munitions. The whole position is bookended by the two large puck bunkers, and smaller trenches run down to fighting positions towards the front.
Alright, this was rather large, sort of what I had expected. There had to be something larger out here. And you know, it's okay that it's locked, because it means someone is taking care of it. And look at that. That is an emergency exit, built up in stone. Wow, somewhat fragile. And here's a little buttress down to the cannon, which will be in the room right under here. Have crew compartments, radio, Mannschaft room, quarters. And here's another emergency exit. Well, imagine that. Well, actually, this makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Now, the line of bunkers down there with a large one at the end. Then I took an L and hooked up here. Well, there's another one. So the line bends. Possibly. I'm going to have to look at some battle maps to figure out what's facing where. This looks exactly like what we've seen before. small one-room crew bunker. Imagine it is. And it is. Exactly what we've seen before. With the trench running behind here somewhere into it. But, well, we can't be certain till we're certain. Well, I'm pretty damn certain. I wonder if there's a bird in here too. Again, full of water. Don't know what that is. And if it wasn't for the trees, you would actually be able to see the pillboxes from each other. And over here with the larger one at the other end. $19.40. Sergeant. $19.40. May 14, 1940. 12 May 1940. 12 May 1940. 12 May 1940. 12 May 1940. A lot of privates. There's a captain. 12 May. Peters. Private. 12 May. Oh, dudes died here. Wonder how the French losses looked. 1 officer, sergeant, there, private. So here is 12 June and 12 May. Cannoneer. Cannoneer, gunner. 5 May, or 12 May. 6 June. Artillerist again. 7 June. This was a long battle. How could they have died with a month in between? From 12 May to 12 June. If you think about that, guys died here over a month in this same location. How does that work with a lightning speed advance? 16 of June, 15 of June, 14 of May. Artillerist again in June. Okay. He died here the 3rd of March, 1940. March 3rd? I wonder how that happened. And here's a workman. Workman Hans Luck died in July. No, August. And Hans Rühner in July. September? And here's a workman. that died in July here. And another private. And another workman that died here. And an unknown. We didn't know what he did. He died in 1945. Oh. And here, I guess that's the saddest one. An unknown German soldier died here. And is buried with an Obergefreiter that died on 23 February 1945. They fought here in the Second World War twice. Here again, several died in February. More here in February. And 2 unknown German soldiers. See, that is what's so sad. When you have unknown soldiers died, we know we have bodies, but they just didn't know where they were. I have missing family members from the Second World War who still haven't been found, so I can relate.
So clearly I was wondering why or how there could have been casualties already from the winter of 1939. So I had to go do a little digging, since there was no general German attack here, not even in May. It turned out that these bunkers were constructed from January 1940 as part of the West Wall construction. Here was hectic construction ongoing along the line. On December 24, 1939, Hitler himself visited this part of the line, where the Pack bunkers and the smaller crew shelters were to be constructed. Initially, as Germany invaded Poland, the French made a limited 8-mile incursion into the Saar region, just like they did during the War of 1870. It began with a limited French attack, followed by a withdrawal, as usual, with no result except it showed the German defenses to be relatively weak and that the French were not really capable or willing to actually invade Germany, just like last time. Thereafter, the lines here fell silent. The British dropped leaflets in the thousands, and the French and Germans readied themselves, but with no fighting really reported. However, there must have been, since here are crosses to prove it. The casualties here occurred during the Sitzenkrieg, the period after the fall of Poland before the invasion of France, on May 10, 1940. Reportedly, French artillery from nearby Maginot Line forts shelled the workers and the soldiers here, those building bunkers, killing around 100 of them. This is something I've not heard about before, since the Quiet War was generally, well, quiet and uneventful. And the Maginot Line forts even here are just about at their full extent of their range. But, as many of the forts kept fighting long after May 10th, that can explain the casualties in the month after the German invasion began. Still, there's some interesting question marks that could be raised about exactly how and what and why happened here, and why haven't we heard about it, just like we really haven't heard much about the American attack here.
French soldier just across from the German World War II cemetery from the Franco-Prussian War. A French soldier's lying right next to a German soldier. That's actually quite rare and interesting to see them being buried together. They are all, wow, actually, you know what? That's actually that's very moving. See a French soldier and a German soldier, and the French soldier and a German soldier lay here. They're lying buried here in pairs, 1 to 1. And the Franco-Prussian War was a mess. And the graves of most of them are not preserved. It's not a war anyone cares to remember, not even then. Unknown French soldier. I wonder if these were buried like this by the French or by the Prussians. The burial details after the Franco-Prussian battles were an absolute nightmare to do. Not to mention what then followed. A German-French cemetery. That's rare, you don't see one of those. Franz von Daum, captain and company's chief. An infantry regiment from Breslau. August 1870. Major Adjutant, 12th Dragoons, 1870. Here, Heinrich Schmidt, First Lieutenant. What's that? Is that 22nd Infantry Regiment? These three graves are actually really interesting because they're indicative of how soldiers' fate after death in the Franco-Prussian War was memorialized or not. Here rests brave soldiers, 6th August 1870. There's something very moving about this little cemetery. Maybe it's because my family was originally from Prussia, but just because Franco-Prussian War, German-Prussian cemeteries are quite rare, and they're rare to see because no one maintained them. After all, they fell in a foreign land in the war where they defeated the land that inhabited it. The French weren't really keen on preserving the graves of those who had just defeated them so soundly. So that's why I'm special to see here that they're actually buried together. That's a good initiative. Good for healing.
To see these war graves side by side of these former enemies is actually quite nice and moving. It can be seen as a sign of healing, and especially for the Franco-Prussian War, one nobody living remembers or cared much for. Across France, sadly, war graves from that war still sits uncared for and overgrown, so it's nice to see here that somebody still cares. It makes this a special place. This is not remembered enough, and I do find it a little strange that so little is known about what happened here in 1945. That might be something to look into for a book for the future. And maybe, having seen this, the association caring for these bunkers will reach out, so maybe we can get a glimpse of the insides of the bunkers as well.
My name is Tino Struckmann. I run Lost Battlefields. Every year, I travel around the world to try to bring you to all the most interesting historical military locations from modern wars and World War II special projects, battlefields, forts, fortresses, and tunnels, everything else. Things you may not be able to see or go to yourselves. Please join me on Patreon or join Lost Battlefields through the website so you get access to all my files and my notes. It really does help, and like, follow, share here on the channel if you can. That helps too.